Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this critical intelligence. Because, let's be real, as executives and leaders managing global operations, you need the bottom line up front. And that bottom line is this. Microscopic vectors, we're talking mosquitoes, ticks, and rodents, pose massive, highly strategic risks to global travel, workforce continuity, and your international operations. So today, we're taking complex clinical data and translating it directly into actionable corporate mitigation strategies. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're covering 5 key areas today. 1. The global threat landscape. 2. High-probability operational disruptors. 3. High-impact neurological threats. 4. Severe hemorrhagic and pulmonary risks. And finally, Section 5, what really matters to your bottom line, strategic mitigation and prevention. All right, Section 1, the global threat landscape. We really need to start by quantifying the sheer scale of the biological risks facing your workforce. Think about this number for a second, 400 million. That's the estimated number of global dengue virus infections that happen every single year. That is a staggering figure. And here's the real operational kicker. The primary vector for dengue, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, bites during the day. So this isn't just an after-hours problem, it's a massive daytime operational disruptor actively targeting your employees while they're working, commuting, or attending off-site meetings in endemic zones. Moving right along to Section 2, high-probability operational disruptors. These are the high-frequency threats to workforce continuity. Let's move to and see how this actually builds, using dengue as our prime example. It attacks in 3 distinct phases. It kicks off with the febrile phase, sudden high fever, and severe muscle pain. You'll often hear it called breakbone fever because of the intense agony. But step 2 is where your corporate duty of care is really put to the test. The critical phase, which hits around days 3 to 5, can cause plasma leakage, meaning incredibly dangerous drops in blood pressure, and fluid literally filling the lungs. Finally, if managed well, the patient enters the recovery phase, which is often marked by a dramatically slowed heart rate. Understanding this timeline is absolutely essential for timing your medical evacuations. Now, another major productivity drain is chikungunya, spread by those exact same daytime mosquitoes. It causes a really distinctive recurring fever, but the real operational impact here, severe debilitating joint pain that migrates all over the body. And in a significant chunk of middle-aged or older employees, especially those carrying a specific genetic marker known as HLA-B27, this doesn't just go away. It can actually evolve into chronic arthritis, turning what should have been a brief business trip into a long-term occupational health nightmare. Now, what's really interesting about Zika is its hidden liability. While 80% of cases are completely asymptomatic, people don't even know they have it, Zika presents a prolonged, unseen transmission risk. It can remain infectious in semen for up to 69 days, and viral RNA is detectable for up to 188 days. For traveling executives returning home from epidemic zones, this represents a highly sensitive, long-tail operational health risk. It absolutely demands clear, proactive internal travel policies. Which brings us to Section 3, high-impact neurological threats. We're shifting gears to low-probability but incredibly severe geographic risks. Mapping these risks out creates a crucial matrix for your regional managers to use. For instance, West Nile is practically global, but thankfully, severe neurological cases are rare, sitting under 1%. But then you have eastern equine encephalitis on the U.S. East Coast. That carries a staggering 30 to 50% case fatality rate, which is the highest in the U.S. And over in the Asia-Pacific region, we have Japanese encephalitis, carrying a 20 to 30% fatality rate for hospitalized patients. Drilling down into Japanese encephalitis, or JE, for a second, it's actually the most common viral encephalitis in Asia. With roughly 68,000 cases annually, it's a massive burden. What makes JE uniquely concerning from a clinical perspective is that it often presents with Parkinson-like tremors, acute psychosis, or sudden, severe paralysis. So, if your company has operations or supply chains running through rural Asia, this is absolutely a top-tier threat you need to monitor. All right, Section 4, severe hemorrhagic and pulmonary risks. These are your high-fatality systemic crises. And this brilliantly illustrates the geographic divide of hantaviruses. Over in the Americas, hantavirus pulmonary syndrome specifically targets the lungs, rapidly causing them to fill with fluid and triggering shock. Meanwhile, in Eurasia, hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome targets the kidneys, causing them to essentially shut down completely. We're talking about totally different systemic failures with totally different geographic footprints. Both of them require massive emergency medical interventions.
Geography really is destiny here, folks. Lassa fever in West Africa is unique because it causes permanent deafness in about 30% of cases. Obviously, that's a massive worker compensation and liability issue. Rift Valley fever in Africa and the Middle East, that can trigger late-stage complications leading to blindness weeks after the initial infection. And yellow fever, found in Africa and South America, is notorious for its intoxication phase, which causes massive organ failure and internal bleeding. That phase is fatal for about half of those who enter it.
Now, here's a critical concept for corporate crisis response: nosocomial outbreaks. That simply means hospital-based transmission. Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, or CCHF, which is prevalent in Africa, Asia, and emerging in Europe, frequently spreads exactly this way. So it's not just a threat from tick bites out in the field, it requires rigorous barrier nursing because it spreads so rapidly via infected blood inside healthcare facilities. As you can imagine, this severely complicates local treatment and your medical evacuation logistics.
Finally, Section 5, Strategic Mitigation and Prevention. Let's look at the absolute bottom line on countermeasures.
Let's start with a massive win, the yellow fever 17D vaccine. This thing is the gold standard in preventive travel medicine. It's highly effective, we're talking over 90%, and it establishes immunity within just 10 days, making it excellent for rapid workforce deployments. Better yet, a single dose likely provides lifelong protection. You do need to be a little cautious as it's contraindicated for severe egg allergies and infants, but overall, it's a really vital, high ROI tool in your health security arsenal.
Now, consider this an executive alert. Not all vaccines are straightforward. The dengue vaccine, Denvoxia, is incredibly dangerous if administered incorrectly. If you give this vaccine to a seronegative employee, meaning someone who has never had dengue before, it acts as their first infection. If they are later bitten by an infected mosquito in the field, a process called antibody-dependent enhancement triggers. This leads to much higher viral loads and far, far more severe disease. You absolutely must screen your personnel before vaccination.
So the crucial point is that post-exposure treatments are highly specific. There is no universal silver bullet here. For instance, the intravenous antiviral ribavirin is highly effective at reducing mortality for Lassa fever and that Eurasian kidney-targeting hantavirus we talked about, as long as it's administered early. However, despite being in the same viral family, ribavirin is completely unproven and simply not effective for the American hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. Medical intelligence must be extremely precise. Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, right? From the daily operational disruption of dengue all the way to the severe systemic crises of hemorrhagic fevers. As global mobility continues to increase and your operations inevitably push further into endemic zones, the stakes have literally never been higher. So, I'll leave you with this critical question. Based on the strategic data we've explored today, is your organization truly prepared for the biological risks awaiting your workforce? It might be time to review those travel health protocols. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and stay safe out there.